or techniques to handle the exceptions. Okay, so I'll mention techniques or technology, or you can say how we handle the exception in UiPath. Okay, so what methods we follow to handle the exception in UiPath? So first method is called as the try catch finally block. It's a very traditional method, and this method is used everywhere, not only the UiPath. With help of the try catch finally block, we can implement this technique or implement this methodology in every you can say application development software. You can say C#, you can say .NET, or any everywhere we can use this try catch finally block. Okay, then second we have some concepts like throw, right, then rethrow, right, then we have like continue on error, right, then again we have locks, right. It's this all concepts are related to the exception handling with help of yes. Okay, fine, it's not visible yet. Okay, fine, I'll just share it again. Okay, now it's visible. Okay, fine. Okay, so how we can handle the exceptions in UiPath? Okay, the very first techniques, or in very first we have try catch finally block. Okay, so we have try catch finally block mechanism to handle that exception, right. Second, we can say we have like one activity called as the throw, we have another activity called as the rethrow, right, and we have one property called as the continue on error, right. The first, or you can say first we will list all that you can say techniques, and later we will go over that techniques one by one. Okay, so first, then terminate workflow, right. Sixth is retry scope, right, retry scope, and at the end last global exception handler, right. So with help of the 7 techniques, or with help of the 7 methodology or terminology, we can handle the exception, right. So we will see one by one how we can handle the exceptions here, right. First and foremost, what is the try catch finally block? What is this basically? What is this try catch finally block? Okay, so here we'll take the same example, yesterday's example. Okay, so this is my simple click. Okay, and here inside this click activity, I am simply clicking this click activity, or I am using the simple you can say click activity. Okay, and here what we have performing here now, for example, if I'll run this, okay, and the selector is not correct one, that's what I am getting the error. My bot is failing here. Okay, now what is this bot is doing? This bot is executing this, trying to execute this click activity, and this is actively looking that selector. Okay, which selector? Click activity selector they are actively looking, right. But that selector, intentionally I have put the wrong selector over there, so that's what here my bot is breaking, right. So in short, with help of this activity, or here my bot is breaking, or you can say here my error is occurred, or you can say exception is occurred. I need to handle this exception, or I need to handle this error. So with help of the try catch block, how we can handle this? Okay, again, so in exception handling we divide this exception in a 2 part. First part, or you can say first important thing, is like to identify the issue, right. First important part is like we need to identify the issue, where exactly and what exactly issue is. That we need to understand. That is the first part. And the second part, once we know what is the exception and where exactly that exception happened, we need to resolve that exception, right? We need to resolve the exception, right? So exception handling is combination of these two part 1 plus part 2. What is the part 1? We need to identify the issue, where exactly issue is occurred, that we need to first understand. Then and then only we need to on the basis of that primary you can say part 1, we handle the exception, right? So we will see how we can how we identify the issue, right? Just consider we have a lot of activities there, or we have a lot of, you can say, XAML file is there, like 100 out, or like a 200, 300, or you can say 50, 100 files are there, right? So out of that 100 files, where exactly my bot is failing, that identification is very important for me to resolve that specific issue, right? Now just consider, for example, here I have some activity just like this, right? Here also I have some activity, here also I have some activities, right? So out of this, which activity is failing, that is very important for me to resolve that basically. Otherwise, how I know which activity is failing, right? So to identify that, okay, to identify that, we need to have this you can say try catch finally block mechanism. First we will see how we can use this try catch finally block. What is this try catch finally block? Okay, so this is, you can say, one methodology or terminology, or you can say one concept. If you see, if you put try inside this activity, what you need to simple put try, right? Try. If you see in error handling, you will see try catch, right? This is, you can say, activity. If you say default activities, contains activities to be executed by the workflow running in an exception handling block. So what do you mean by that? Now what I'll do, I'll just simply drag this activity here, right? This try catch block looks like in this way, try catch, and we have one session for try, one session for catch, and one session for finally. So what is the main purpose of the try, what is the main purpose of catch, and what is the main purpose of the finally, that we will see. So just remember, when we'll put this two way, we can put this one, right? One, we can take this try catch activity from here, from this activity panel. This is the one way. And the second way, if I want to put this try catch activity inside this main sequence, so simply I'll just right click it, and if you see, we have surrounded with try catch block. So in this way also we can put try catch activity, right? Both way you can put, like one, right? For example, this is one sequence where I need to implement the try catch, you can say, exception handling mechanism. So what I simply do, I can simply put surrounded, I can just simply click on here, right click on here, and I just simply use surrounded with try catch block. This is the one way. Second way, I'll use this try catch, I'll just drag this try catch block activity from activity, and inside this I'll put my whole sequence. Inside this I'll put my whole sequence, right? So both way we can use the try catch block activity. Now just remember, whichever code we have write, okay, for example, I have write one XAML, or like 2 XAML, 3 XAML, 4 XAML, 5 XAML, like 100 XAMLs, or you can say 20 XAML or 50 XAML. Just remember, so every XAML needs to put inside the try catch block, right? Because this is the exception handling mechanism, right? Now inside this main sequence, if I have lot of sequences or lot of activities which I have implemented inside this main sequence, and in between that, if any activity is failing, so which activity is failing, that I need to understand, right? So for that, this try catch block is playing role, a very important role, to identify which activity is failing. So that's what, whichever workflow, whichever activity I need to handle the exception, I need to put that whole workflow, that whole activity, or that whole code inside the try block. Okay, so in the try block, okay, I'll just divide this try, right? try, simple. So whole code whole code I need to put, right, put inside the try block. That's fine. Okay, try block. But if you see here, I have just put it one the whole activity inside this main sequence. Now I'll got one exception here. If you see here, catch or finally expected for try catch activity, just like this error is occurred for me. So what this saying is, if you put it this whole activity inside this try block, you can put something either in finally block or in a catch block, either way. Now I have put it the whole activity inside the try block, right? Now just consider inside this main sequence, I will get either it will give me error as a technical exception, or it will give me error as a business exception, right? We know we need to handle only two type of exception: first technical exception and business exception, right? So here just consider, for example, if any technical exception is occurred inside this specific code. For example, here in this our example, we'll got the technical exception here, right? So to handle that exception, or to identify that exception inside this catch block, we need to catch that exception, right? We need to catch that exception. So here inside this catch block, we'll simply put, see, inside these catches, we need to just simply click on this add new catch. Once I click on that, we will get one you can say drop down list here, and from this drop down list you will see we have a lot of exception here, like system.argument exception, system.null reference exception, system.io exception, system.invalid operator exception, system.exception. So what is the system.argument exception? Argument exceptions means while passing any argument, if I'll got exception to pass argument, so to handle that specific exception related to that argument passing, we have this system.argument exception. Null reference exception, if while passing any value, if I'll getting null value means we will discuss more on that null value exception, but in short, null value means blank value, right? If I am calculating something, right, and unfortunately I'll get some blank value, right? So in this case what happened, 0, or you can say blank into 0, again we will get the 0. That means I'll get the always 0 and my bot is failing over there. To handle such type of exceptions, this system.null exception, another system.input output exception, there are a lot of exception is there, but as I said, we need to only handle two type of exception: business exception and system exception. So if you see here, we have system.exception. That class is base class for all the exception, right? So it's very important, right? System dot exception is the base class for all the exception, right? So if I'll implement this class system.exception, this will handle all type of the exception. We need not require, or we do not require to handle any specific exception. For example, if you see here, we have this exception called as the argument exception, right? Argument exception, or you can say IO exception, input output exception, or you can say null reference exception, or you can say invalid operator exception. But I don't know exactly which exception is handled by which class, right? If I'll put this simple system.exception and I'll got any exception out of the exception, for example this exception, right? Now if I got any exception like IO, you can say invalid operator related exception, or null value exception, or argument exception, this all exception will handle by this system.exception class. Very simple, right? So here what I'll do, inside this try block I have putted my whole code, or I have putted my whole sequence, right? And inside this catches I have put system dot exception. How I put it that I'll show you again. I'll just delete this. Okay, simple. I'll just put add new exception. Once I click there, this drop down list is appeared for me, and if you see system dot exception class is appeared for me. Okay, so simply I'll just click on this system dot exception. Again, if you see here, this is my system dot exception class, and this is variable of that specific class, right? So variable, right? Now, like system dot exception, and this is my class, and this is variable where, just for example, var1. So what is this? This is similar like, for example, integer int var1. It's similar like this. Okay, so now I can use this int var1 everywhere. So similar way, now this system dot exception or this exception is used as a variable. I can use this variable, and I can take any appropriate actions on this variable. Okay, now to log that I need to log that exception. As I said, we need to first handle, or we need to concentrate on this part 1. We need to identify the issue. So how we need to identify the issue, or how we identified that issue? So to catch exception, it's like a simple catch, right? So for example, to catch that exception, we have one activity called as the log message. Log message, right? This is my log message. I simply drag this activity here. Inside this log message, again here what I'll do, inside this log message, if you see, we have two options available, message and log level. Now I am using this log message to catch exception, right? Technical exception. So inside this log level, you will see multiple option is available: fatal, error, warning, info, or track. This all are related to exception only, but they have their own you can say definition. They have their own functionality. Fatal is similar like, you can say, error only, but it's a normal error. Fatal error, it's a proper, or you can say it's a exact technical error. Warn message is equal to warning. It's not, it's kind of a warning, right? So if I want to handle warnings, then I can choose this option. Inform is information. If I want to handle any information, if I want to print any information, then I can use information for info. Trace, I need to, if I want to trace something, I need to you can say get some information, so I can use trace. In our example, we need to handle error. That's what I'll choose error as a log level, right? And inside this message, what I need to handle, inside this message, I simply put double quotes. Why double quotes? Now I need to write some, you can say, message here. So I'll just simply use the exception is occurred at this step, right? What I have written here, this exception, the exception is occurred at this step, right? And I'll just click, I'll just put plus sign here. Why plus sign? What I am doing here, I am concatenating, or I am connecting this string to my value. This is my string. If I'll execute this, I will get result in this form. For example, this you can say text, or this string will appear as it is, and with plus sign I am appending something. This is my plus sign. Now for example, this exception occurs at, for example, step 1, right? So what is the output of this whole exercise? So this output is like this. Okay, just like this. The exception is occurred at this step 1, right? So for that purpose, here I am using plus sign. And again, if you see here, this is a variable. As I said, I have created system.exception, and automatically this exception variable is created. If you see this blue box is always be represent a variable sign. It's a variable, right? So here I'll use this variable exception dot. Now we use message, exception dot message. Simple. Now what is the meaning of the whole exercise here, or why I am you can say doing this exercise, right? Now inside this try, if anything happened, right, we will execute that, we will debug that, and we will see how this execution, whole execution will occur, right? Now just now what I am doing here, right, I'll just debug this code. Okay, instead of running, I'll just use debugging, right? So here I'll just execute this. Now again step into, if you see again step into, right, hi, that means this execute successful, this activity executes successfully, we don't have any exception in this activity, right? Again step into, again in second activity is also execute successfully, we don't have any exception in the second activity. Now inside this click span, if I'll execute this activity, as I know in this activity we have some exception, or this code is not working properly. Okay, now let's see what happened. Now just remember, if for example I have lot of activities there, right, and if I'll got any exception in this activity, so the further activities or the remaining activities will not execute. Why? Because I am stopping here, because of this failure my bot is stopped here, right? Now this exception occurred here. Again if I'll click on this step into, now you will see here this UiPath will not execute, this activity will not execute because my bot is failing here, right? If you see click span, this is the technical exception message, no open windows from chrome.exe, please check if the application is running, right? So if I'll click on this step into, now if you see, now my control go inside the exception block, right? My control go inside the exception block. Now if I'll again click on the step into, so you will see this message. Which message? This technical message. Okay, the exception is occurred at this step, no one windows found to chrome.exe, please check if the application is running. So this message which is occurring, this is the exact message which I require or which I need, right? Now with help of this message I know, if you see click span, now we'll execute this. Okay, step into, and my bot is stopped here. Now what was my expectation here? I need to identify the issue, right? So with help of this log activity, right, with help of this activity, or you can say this activity, if you see the exception is occurred at, I have written in the double quotes, right, plus this step, so no open window found for chrome.exe, please check if the application is running. So this technical exception is logged here, or this technical exception is logged here. See, click span, no open window found for chrome.exe, please check if the application is running. So basically this activity, if you see here click span, so simply what I'll do, I'll simply copy this activity, right, and inside this I'll just simply open one notepad, I'll put the whole activity here, right, and also here I'll take this activity as well, because in that activity I'll got the exception. So simply what I'll do, see click span, I'll simply copy this. Okay, I simply copy this, and here inside this code I'll go and put this control F, and I'll simply put this click span. Sorry, how? Again I'll just copy that technical word, again I'll go inside this main control, I put control F, and I'll put that message click span, and if I'll just enter it, now with help of this click span message, now I understood key in this activity we have failed, something we have failed because of this activity, right? That means we have identified this step here, that means our first part is correct. what is my first part? We need to identify the issue. So here with help of this log message, otherwise it's very difficult to for me to identify that specific issue with the specific activity, right? But because of this activity or because of this message, I am able to identify that. Now that means I'll achieve my first goal. Now second goal, right? So second goal is like, now I need to resolve this issue. So how I can resolve this issue? So with help of this activity, I know something is happened, or something is related to the selector. So simply what I'll do, I'll go in this click span activity, and here inside this activity, now I need to handle this one, right? So simply what I'll do, okay, right? So simply what I'll do, I'll simply repair this selector. Okay, so here I'll go and I'll just simply so in basically I need to handle this exception. I need to check this exception, or I need to give the proper exception here, okay, or proper selector here, right? I need to install, actually I need to install the browser here, because cannot communication with the browser. Click on the more information. I need to first install this browser, fine, Edge Chromium, then it will give me the, but I am not installing because all my extension will go away, right? So here I can, in this way I can handle the exception as well. So identify the issue first, and second I can resolve that issue as well. So this is the whole purpose of, you can say, exception handling, right? So try, you can put whole code inside the try block. Once any exception is occurred, then that exception is cached by the catch block, right? But the whole exception, or that exception is cached by the catch block, right? So this is fine. This is related to like technical exception. But in case if I'll got any business related exception, again, so we can put as many as catches here, right? It's not like I can only handle the technical exception. If I want to handle the business exception, then again I'll just put the one more exception. And if you see, we have browse for type, so from here I can handle the business. To handle the business exception, we have business rule exception. Here we have system.exception. To handle the business exception, we have business rule exception class. Again, here also we'll put the same log message. Here I'll use you can say error, right? And here I'll use the same, the business exception is occurred at, and I'll simply plus sign, and I'll use exception dot message, okay, exception dot message. So vice versa, if I'll got any technical exception, my control goes here, and if I'll got any business exception, my control goes here. So try, right, any exception occurred, my control go either exception, technical exception, or business exception, if I'll got business exception. Now what is this finally block? Why this block is you can say available here, right? So this finally block will execute the code in both cases. In both cases means, if any exception occurred, then also this block will you can say execute. If any exception will not occur, then also this finally block will execute. Now the question here is why, so why this finally is required? So in automation, when we automate something, there are some you can say some activities, or there are something which we need to perform anyway, either exception case or without exceptional case. For example, if I want to open the application, that is the common case, right? And if I want to close this application, so this is also common case, right? So this finally block will execute in both cases, right? So finally block, right, try catches. So here I'll just mention we can catch the exception which is thrown by try block. Okay, and catch or finally block. Okay, so finally block, it will execute in both the cases, right? You can say exceptional case or regular case, right? Regular case. How we can see that? Now here I'll just simply put the one message box here, and simply I'll just put some information here like I am inside the finally block. Okay, now for example, now if I'll run my bot, now this is a case of the exception one, right? This is the exceptional case. See, if you see click span execute, actually now what happened, no? So now I am able to execute that because I have just put it that activity, right? So what I'll do one thing here. Now if you see, right, now if I'll validate it, okay, or if I'll highlight it, okay, now so in short, this is a valid case. In this case, this is, if you see, this is the valid case, right? So this is a valid case. Here also I am able to go inside the finally block, right? If you see here, if you see, I am inside the finally block. Okay, and if you see, this UiPath activity is also you can say executes, or this activity also you can say executes, if you see this UiPath. And if I'll put something here, just like any exceptional activity, just like this, okay, right, and I'll put something like okay, so intentionally I'll put some you can say message here or something here, because I need to break my code. This is my exceptional case, right? So here, right, if you see, this is a invalidate state, so simply use this, okay, and I simply click OK. So here also, if I'll execute this, okay, so in this case also my this finally block will get execute, right? So finally block is execute in both cases. Either we got exception, then also this finally block got execute, and if I am not getting any exception, then also that finally block will execute. So why this finally block is used? In anything which we need to execute in our program, so we can put that specific option inside this finally block. For example, if I want to write any code to open my application, or if I want to write any code to see, this is the exceptional case, right? If I'll click on this step into, now if you see step into, now if you see, I'll got this exception, right? This technical exception here, right? This technical exception, whole technical exception is occurred here. And again, if I'll click on this you can say step into, so that if you see finally execution, right, I am inside the finally block, so this log is also executed, right? So in this way, with help of the try catch finally block, we can handle the exception, right? So if any exception occurred, and now one more thing, for example, if I don't have anything, right, I'll just execute, I'll just delete this, and if I'll execute this, this is a plain execution without any exception, right? So in this case, what happened, my bot will know, my bot will not go inside the exception block. If you see hi, you can say then team, then UiPath, and I am inside the finally block. What do you mean by that? Now I am not get any exception, I am not, my sequences or my activities are working as expected, no exception. If there are no exception, that means I am not, this catch block will not execute. When this catch blocks will execute, then if any exception is occurred, then and then only on the depend of the exception this catches executes. If there is no exception, then this catch block will not executes, directly my finally block executes. Fine. Okay, got it. So with help of this try catch final exceptions, we handle the exception.